The Buffalo Bills are heavy favorites on Sunday against the Saints, but I think they have plenty to prove. I'll explain that and more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. It's time for our last conversation before the Bills host the Saints in Week 4. And we're going to give you my 5 predictions for Sunday. We're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about the injuries. And, of course, there's some new information on Maxwell Hairston that I'm excited to get his opinion on. But I want to start with my final thoughts. And my final thought, my big prevailing thought going into this game against the Saints is that the Bills have a lot to prove. Now, obviously, the Bills are 15.5-point favorites at home against the Saints in a game where the Bills have a rest advantage. I expect the Bills to win this game. Spoiler, later on in the show, when I give you my prediction for the outcome, I'm going to predict the Bills to win this game. And I don't have a lot of concerns about that not happening. I'm not here right now to try to create some panic or fear or sell you on this script that the Saints have to win the game. I think the Bills are going to win the game. And it's fun to consider, well, are they going to cover the spread or not? Are they going to win 40-10? Whatever. I think this team has a lot to prove. And so, yes, I am interested in the game script and how the Bills are going to win this game and all those things. But when I just zoom out and I consider what we've learned about this team and what we need to learn about this team, there's a lot. And a game like this, I think, is critical for us seeing some of these elements come together. Let's start with the defensive side of the football. How about these young defensive tackles? Ed Oliver's out again. That means TJ Sanders and Deon Walker are going to play a lot, and they need to. They need reps. And the Saints have issues as a football team, but I like the makeup of their offensive line from a run-blocking perspective, particularly on the inside. Trevor Penning, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz. Those are all good run-blocking NFL starting offensive linemen. And Deon Walker and TJ Sanders have a great opportunity to show growth. I thought they've been rough all year long. Now, Deon Walker's been better than Sanders. I love the flashes for sure. But both of these guys are struggling against the run to process the run schemes, play with good technique, get off blocks, and make plays. It just hasn't been there with any level of consistency. It's a good opportunity to prove yourself because reps are going to be competitive for this defensive tackle situation. And we got to figure out what's going on with these two and which one can actually help us down the stretch. So that's number one, these young defensive tackles. Number 2, let's keep it on the defensive line. And I surely hope to see Landon Jackson this week. AJ Epenesa dealing with a pectoral injury. Bosa's snaps have been high. Rousseau's playing through a bone bruise in his knee. I need to see Landon Jackson this week. You got 3 games left before Michael Hoyt comes back, and you got to figure out your rotation. And part of that is figuring out what you have in Landon Jackson. He's got to play. He's got to play. And so I don't know if that's over Javon Solomon, in addition to Javon Solomon, based on the other dynamics at the position that I just talked about. But we got to learn some things about Landon Jackson starting this week. Number 3 on defense, Dorian Williams once again starting for Matt Milano. That's not an unusual thing, but we still have to learn more about Dorian Williams. Matt Milano's in a contract year, and he's not often available. Is that your dude next to Terrell Bernard for the foreseeable future? Or are we going to have to talk about the Bills finding an answer in the draft or free agency next offseason? Another big data point in the Dorian Williams development story. We're going to find out on Sunday against the Saints. How about Cole Bishop at safety? You think you got that guy figured out yet? I don't. I like that he's playing a lot better this year. I like the experience that he's gaining. But this is another big opportunity for him to showcase himself as a playmaker and as a starter and solidifying himself as an answer. And then I'll go to a more established player, and that's Trey White at CB2, opposite of Benford. Who knows what's going on with Maxwell Harrison? I can't wait to hear from Dr. Kyle Trimble here in just a moment, but Trey White going to be your guy there this year? I like the matchups for him against Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Not necessarily that I like them for Trey White as it's an advantage for Trey White, but those are exactly the types of receivers that make you concerned about Trey White going out there as your CB2. Because those are speed receivers that can win vertically. Trey White's been good as a tackler this year. I think his zone defense has been fine. He's been targeted 7 times in 2 games. He gave up 5 catches for 27 yards. What does he show us? What do we continue to learn about Trey White? I think he's got stuff to prove. And outside of those individuals defensively, how about as a unit? Third downs. Not better so far this year. The Bills are 23rd in third down defense, and that's factoring in the Jets went 0 for 11 in week 2. They gave up 63% of third downs to the Ravens and Dolphins. And Eric Turner, Cover One, put a metric out on Twitter this week saying that the average distance on these third downs for the Bills so far this year is 8.2 yards. The good news is the Bills are playing pretty good defense on first and second down. The bad news, they're giving up third and longs left and right. There's a lot to prove there. How about red zone defense? Not been good this year. 27th in red zone defense. The Bills have given up a touchdown on 5 of 7 trips to the red zone this year. 3 for 3 to the Dolphins. Got a lot to prove. So yeah, go smoke the Saints. I need to learn more about this football team. Now, there's less on offense, but I still think the offense is establishing things. Want to continue to see the momentum of Dalton Kincaid. Want to continue to see Josh Palmer acclimate himself to this offense. Keon Coleman, we're still figuring that out. Like where it's headed, still need to see that continue to evolve. How about this Elijah Moore role? Jackson Hawes, love him. It's your 4th game. How about Ray Davis? It's been a slow start for him. Could be some opportunities in this game. So, yeah, you got stuff to learn about this offense as it continues to build and establish certain elements. And I'll extend it to special teams. The kicker and punter just got here. Matt Prater at kicker, Cam Johnson at punter. Are these your answers? Cam Johnson, the dude? Does Matt Prater continue to handle things and make you less concerned about if and when Tyler Bass can return? Point being, I expect the Bills to win this game. I expect it to not be a very uncomfortable Sunday afternoon. But within that, we still have a lot to learn from individual players, from units. It's all there. And so there's plenty to pay attention to other than how much or how many points are the Buffalo Bills going to win by on Sunday against the Saints. All right, coming up next, Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills. Can't wait to get his thoughts on especially Maxwell Harrison, but obviously Spencer Brown and the calf and Ed Oliver's out again. Milano, we'll get into all of it here on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. Certain businesses truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Spending money there doesn't just support the business, it supports the people behind it and the community around it. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more, but Before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, we'll see you in the neighborhood. Folks, it's the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. We're going back to the last Bills game, Thursday Night Football. Dolphins are threatening to score a tying touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Well, Terrell Bernard had other plans. He intercepts Tua Tagovailoa, and then the Dolphins can't tie up the game. The Bills get a field goal to go up by 10, and the game is on ice. When the pressure was on, Terrell Bernard came through. No hesitation, no delay. And just like Terrell Bernard delivered for the Buffalo Bills, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on social media at bangedupbills. He joins us each week to get ready for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective. And we got a few things to dive into. First of all, we will acknowledge that linebacker Matt Milano, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, didn't practice all week. They're ruled out for Sunday. And when we have new information there, we'll dive into that. But there is some new information to get into. Let's start with right tackle Spencer Brown. Calf injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, limited on Friday. His status for Sunday is questionable. And Kyle, I know that there's a lot of thoughts on this one where based on the opponent, the Saints, the Bills are, nearly a 3-score favorite. Some people are saying don't rush him back. Don't force him. Where are you on Spencer Brown? What do you know about this situation?
Generally, I'm in agreement with everybody else that's, hey, it's a, inferior opponent, or, with the line the way it is, let him rest and get these guys healthy when they can there. Knowing what we know about the injury, Brown had gone on One Bills Live on Wednesday and had said that he was in bed all weekend, laying around, but he had injured his calf during the first drive, which was unique because usually you see these soft tissue injuries happen later in the game, or you can kind of pinpoint second half and then guys are limping around and have a better idea what's happening there. So he said that it suffered during the first drive, and that ended with I think it was Dalton Kincaid touchdown, if I recall correctly. So this is like a few plays before, with like 4:35 left in the first quarter. The run was to the right. I can't remember what the exact play was, but it looked like Brown got kicked in the left calf, and he finished up the rest of the drive. It was moving around okay. And then you go look at the second drive, and he's kind of limping around a little bit. Keep in mind, he finished the entire game, played every offensive snap. And so it seemed like he was probably, kept it loose, kept it warm throughout the game, really wasn't a big issue. And then it probably tightened up on him later and realized, hey, something's going on here. So having the extra days off certainly did help. Having not practiced Wednesday and Thursday did help too. It's worth noting that it appeared to be a left calf because it looks like it got him kicked in the left calf, but also when he was sitting on the ground talking with, I believe it was Dalton Kincaid and Josh Allen during Wednesday's practice, he didn't have anything on his right calf. You can see the skin poking out there. So why that leads me to believe it's a left calf. So that is the inside leg for a right tackle, which does help him in terms of playing, but knowing that what he did this week in practice, I would sit him out just to kind of give him the time to rest up instead of trying to push through this here. And then finally with this, Joe Buscaglia, the Athletic, he took a page out of my book and looked at the practice participation when he was out last year against the Chiefs when he suffered an ankle injury, and he didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, was limited and questionable. So very similar presentation of the practice participation, with Brown being eventually ruled out for that game. I wouldn't be surprised, and I would hope that they would keep him out, just as, let's be smart here. And Ryan Vandermark did a fantastic job in place for Brown last year. So why not make that, do that again?
Couple of follow-up thoughts there. First of all, the tradition continues. Bills players play the entire game, don't have any injury that we know of, and then suddenly there's a mystery injury where, guys don't practice and sometimes don't even play the next game. Spencer Brown is this week's edition of that player. The second part is, how should we feel about the comments that Brown made about, he sat around all weekend? Like, good. I'm happy for you. Like, you had a mini bye, take advantage, but you got a calf deal that's potentially going to cost you a game. Like, did the sitting around help this calf, or should he have been maybe thinking about some rehab opportunities?
I'm sure he was in the facility rehabbing. I mean, I'm sure he said that tongue in cheek there. I don't think that he's going to say, I have calf injury and let's not do anything. You need that active rehab, active movement. I'm sure they were doing everything they could to get him healthy because they have a lot of resources available to him there. So I would hope he says it tongue in cheek, but we do hear occasional stories where guys are not showing up to rehab. They're not doing what they need to be doing, and they really slack on their recovery efforts there. But knowing what he knows and the money he's being paid, I would imagine he's in there every opportunity to get as much rehab as possible. And then, you mentioned the first thing about the mystery injury. These type of things are really hard to find on film.
Right.
I mean, you're looking through the broadcast view and seeing how they're moving after the snap. And, when in between, before they set the ball up, you're looking at the end zone view. You're looking at the all 22 view. You're looking at these different angles. And then you're looking, okay, are they stepping back any differently? Are they starting to limp? And it's sometimes it's straightforward and you find it right away. And other times you're looking through the film 3 or 4 times. And you're like, that might be it. And you're still not even concerned, or you're still not even confident in that. And then sometimes you find out it's another play and you look, it's like, I see it, but you would have not known unless you were told to look for it there. So it's incredible how these mystery injuries do pop up.
One thing about Spencer Brown's interview on One Bills Live, it was interesting how Steve Tasker asked him about the back and, how that's kind of been an issue for him from a long time. And Spencer went into detail about how routine the things that he does are on a daily basis to maintain that back. And so that would probably align more with your thought that, hey, look, he's probably a little tongue in cheek on that comment, but I at least wanted to bring that up to you. AJ Epenesa, he is questionable for the game. Pectoral injury, is limited in practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I heard his comments on Friday talking about it's a pain tolerance thing. What can you tell us about Epenesa?
So Epenesa had a brace on his left shoulder. He was doing like a blocking drill with one of the pads. So we know which side it is. And then he told Matt Marino of Syracuse.com that it was a pec minor injury. So this is one of the pectoral muscles. It's a deeper muscle that connects up to some of the upper ribs, up to part of the shoulder blade. And this is more kind of a secondary muscle. It's not a primary mover muscle. So like you are using it, but you're not using as much as you would like in a bench press or other primary movements of arm movement. So it's certainly important muscle, but not as important as some of the, your biceps, your pectoral, triceps, things like that. So it can get tightened up pretty good if you have rounded shoulders like they're rounded forward there. This type of injury can happen is if I suspect that he was probably trying to bend the edge. His arm kind of got pulled backwards, like a arm cocked back, like in a baseball pitcher. That's, I assume, what happened. It can also happen with abduction, where the arm comes out back wide. So, the offensive tackle maybe push him. He's trying to go inside and the arm gets overextended backwards. So there's a number of different ways for this that could happen. We don't know how that happened, but he said that it's a pec minor injury. So my concern is, could he play? Yeah. But my concern is if he does play, he's going to be limited. If he plays over the left tackle, he's going to have a tough time working the inside portion. And he can swim with the right arm inside, but then on the outside, if he's trying to bend around the edge, he's going to really put a lot of stress on that left arm there, and that might re-injure that there. Conversely, if he lands over the right tackle, he's going to have the opposite problem where he can get around the edge just fine, but if he tries to move inside and that offensive tackle kind of gets up underneath him and forces his arms up high and gets his arm pinned backwards in that cocked back position, is going to irritate the injury. And he said that it's a very specific movements that cause the pain. It's a pain tolerance thing. You got Landon Jackson, who hasn't played yet. Why not get him out there and get him, snaps? And I know the only downside is that he doesn't play special teams, but I'm not saying you throw Jackson out there to play special teams, but you can rearrange some things, but get Jackson that game day jersey, get him some snaps and get some, snaps underneath him so that he can be ready if he's called upon later on, instead of throwing him out there week 9 and not knowing what he's doing and screw up there. So really at the end of the day, rest all these guys because you can.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. You might need Jackson. You might need Javon Solomon this week. Joey Bosa's been playing a lot of snaps. We know Rousseau's playing with a bone bruise in his knee. It's probably a good opportunity to tap into some of those young guys who need reps. All right, I want to talk about a couple of players that are not on the report. So that's it for the report. 2 players questionable, Brown, Epenesa, Milano, Oliver out. In some ways, I feel like this cleaned up with a lot of the stuff that has just been listed on here for the last couple of weeks. But Maxwell Hairston is obviously of interest to Bills Mafia and, of course, myself, where, first round pick, he's been on injured reserve. And we finally have some new information this week. Sean McDermott was asked about Hairston, and he gave some commentary that you could probably find yourself concerned about. Then we also had some different video throughout the week of Hairston doing drills. I'll get out of the way. You tell us what we need to know.
So on Wednesday, it was a minor surprise to see video of him working out, which was great. I wasn't thrilled to see him in the hinged knee brace that we saw him in. And now the team is trying to make sure they protect the joint at all costs, they protect the healing ligament. Keep in mind, he suffered a right LCL sprain, which is a pretty rare injury in itself there. So I thought that he would maybe be out of the brace by now, given it's been almost 2 months there. But if he's going back up to work, position-specific activities, and he's moving around and testing it, you want to make sure to protect the area just in case something crazy happens there. So I get why he's having that brace on there, but the way he was moving around Wednesday, he had a hitch in his step when he was jogging backwards, and he did have a resistance band around him, but still that knee was not flexing and extending as fluidly. Could that have been part of the brace that he had on? Part of it, but also I can just tell that it's just not moving as well as it should be. It wasn't fluid like the left side was there. And there just wasn't as much progress as I was hoping to see. And once again, that's my perception. I don't think that's a reflection of Hairston, the training staff, the doctors, anything else like that. But this might suggest that there's more to the injury than just the LCL sprain. And given that, like I said, it's a rare injury, sometimes you see other structures involved, including the lateral meniscus, one of the hamstring tendons, specifically the biceps femoris. You might see some capsule issues in terms of like the outer coating of the joint, if you will, that could have been irritated. So there could be other stuff going on there, and they just said LCL just to keep it simple there. However, we did see on Thursday, he was moving around better. He was doing more position-specific activities. Still not quite there. We don't expect him to be. But that Wednesday practice suggested, hey, he might not be back by week 8. If you open the practice window up after week 4 here. Thursday inspired a little more confidence, but it would not shock me if they said, hey, let's make sure when you get back into practice, you can focus on the reps and stuff. You focus on the rehab there. So I could see a scenario where they kick out that practice window even a little bit later, because they're not forced to remove him from IR and open that practice window until he's ready. But he still has a little ways to go before he gets back out there. But McDermott tempered expectations and saying, if and when and everything else with that, just to say, hey, he's going to get back out there, but we don't want to rush him back out there because that's how you put too much pressure on a guy. So I like that he was out there. I didn't quite like where he was at, but that also suggests there might be more to the injury. But the team knows what they want to do and how they want to progress him. And when he comes back, he comes back.
Doesn't feel like it's soon. Correct, you and I,
yeah.
Even before we had any of this, you and I think preseason, we talked Hairston, and we were both thinking after the bye, which would be week 7.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like probably not, where maybe that's where they would start to think about opening the practice window as opposed to bringing him back. So Trey White, stay healthy, do your thing, brother. We need you. Last one here is Tyler Bass. He's another player that is eligible to come off of injured reserve after this week. I don't feel like we're close there, but curious if you have any new information on that one.
We don't have a lot of new information. I don't see him coming off anytime soon, not until the team says, hey, we're good to go with this here. And the fact that he was off for 3 weeks in the preseason, came back and kicked, and then they had to shut him down again. I don't know what's going on with this. I mean, I had suggested previously that he had what was called osteitis pubis, which is inflammation of the pelvic area. That could be due to kicking, jumping, things like that. I did read an article in The Athletic, though. I forget who wrote it, but they had said that some of the kickers are trying to work on different kicking techniques and how to get the ball to spin differently there. So kind of like a baseball pitcher working on his different pitches. So some of them had said that, hey, we're trying to get the ball to bounce a different way, move a different way, so you can get the intended response to make sure that the kick returner can have more difficulty feeling the ball. And that got me thinking, was Bass working through some different kicks and maybe overswung? We see the kicking motion be very similar to golf swing there. So if your golf swing's off, you can cause injury or just the ball is being hit funny. That's all speculation on my part, but they specifically mentioned that these kicking techniques, how they're changing things up, can lead to injuries. So unless Bass comes out and says that, we won't know, but it's just an interesting conversation to have that this might have led to it, and it would explain why, after kicking for how many years he's had, try something different and suddenly you're injured. So I don't see him coming back anytime soon. Prater's been doing okay. We'll just kind of wait and see what happens with Bass, and then we'll see what happens with Hairston. But we have some moves coming up, but I see that Bill is taking their time to do this stuff, just to make sure they're not rushing them back and then have more setbacks, and then you lose them for the entire season.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about these kickers, and you kind of solidified my thought, because not only it feels like we have more injured kickers than usual, but the field goals are not going in like they typically do. I think I went and did some research earlier this week on field goal percentages weeks 1 through 3. And I had to go back to like 2019 to find a week 1 through 3 stretch that was a lower make percentage. And then in doing that, I also discovered that the amount of 50-plus yard field goal attempts has literally doubled since 2019, right? So these guys are kicking from distance a lot more. I think a lot of that's with the field position changes, right? You start at the 35, you're 15 yards away from being in range. And if you can hit from distance, that's a big advantage for your football team. And so guys are kicking further field goals and prepping for further field goals. But then this new kickoff stuff where if you can put some English on the ball and get those bounces, it's a big deal. And you're talking about very, consistent people with their mechanics and their stroke of kicking the football. And now you're starting to alter that type of stuff, and you're introducing potentially some new muscles. I get it. Like, there's a lot of strain. And so longer field goals, the new kickoff stuff, it certainly feels like, that could all be contributing to what's happening right now, not just to Tyler Bass, but for place kickers across the league.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the unknown until they tell us that this was going on. But I mean, that's a great discussion, and the stats back that up, what you're saying there. So we'll see what happens when Bass, if he does talk to us eventually, if he comes back, and hopefully they give us some insight. They sometimes do, not always, but it's always great to hear what the thought process was behind the stuff and what the injury was, because that helps me out, helps educate everybody else what's going on. And then you have a better understanding, because so many people just want to poo-poo on these guys. They're wusses, or they're not strong enough. It's like, these guys are great athletes, and they're like race cars. Sometimes things go wrong, and the cataclysmic effect, and causes everything else there. And then my final thought with everything with Hairston and Bass and everything else, I know I'm right and I know I'm wrong, but I also know that when you get new information, you have to reframe your process and understand, why you came to your conclusion in the first place. And then as the new information comes out, how it reframes your thought process, and then kind of looks at everything. Looking from the outside in, I can only tell you so much based off of my thoughts and what I'm being told and reported on. If they're making these determinations on the inside and they're guessing that, and that's a problem, but I know they're not. These guys are very good, and they know what's going on. And when we don't have the full information, that's where it gets confusing. But the Bills know what they want to do. They just have to see how these guys respond, and hopefully they come back and perform well when they are cleared to return.
All right, Dr. Kyle Trimble, always appreciate you taking your time, sharing your expertise. It's one of my favorite parts of the weeks. Thanks for doing it.
Absolutely, and go Bills.
Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel the craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like football players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, folks, it is prediction time here on the podcast. I have 5 of those queued up for you today. Always like to have some fun with these. I know I went 2 for 5 last week, but I got the Bills winning. That was cool. All right, let's do it. Number 1, I have James Cook down for over 74.5 rushing yards. If you go to FanDuel, that's where they have the over-under as of the recording of this podcast. I like the over. Obviously, I think highly of James Cook and his ability to produce, but it's this matchup of the Bills' offensive line against this Saints defensive line where I think there are some good matchups for Buffalo, especially on the interior. I think they have some good pass rushers on the inside, but not players that I think of as stout players. And I think the Bills' run scheme puts a lot of stress on every opponent, whether that's because of James Cook, but the structure, the zone runs, the cutbacks, the 13 personnel, the extra gaps. Josh Allen is a +1 player that you have to account for. I think James Cook's going to cook. So put me down for over 74.5 rushing yards, which is where the prop sits currently on FanDuel. We'll give you another FanDuel prop. Dalton Kincaid. Put me down for over 35.5 receiving yards. I think he tops that. I think the connection is connecting, right, so far this year between Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid. There's been some good down the field moments, good yards after catch moments. I think Kincaid will continue his production this year. You know, you look at this passing offense, it's about Coleman, Kincaid, Palmer, and Shakir, which is exactly what we thought it would be. And they've all got like between 110 and maybe like 150 something receiving yards. I think the Bills are the only team in the league with 4 different pass catchers north of 110 receiving yards so far this year. But I think Kincaid's going to have his opportunities. They're starting a young player, Jonas Senker, a rookie at safety. I think their linebackers are better downhill players than they are coverage players. I think Kincaid tops 35.5 receiving yards. The next one, I think the Bills defense gets their first multi-takeaway game of the year. The Bills have 1 takeaway in each game so far this year, and the Saints only have 2 giveaways this year. I think the Bills are going to take away the ball. I think Spencer Rattler's been getting away with some throws, one of the highest turnover-worthy throw rates in the entire NFL. He only has 1 interception. I think he'll throw probably at least 1. The Bills have been really good at stripping the football, forcing fumbles. I think the Bills come away with their first multi-takeaway game of the year. Number 4, I wanted to do something for Ray Davis on these predictions. And what I'm going with is 25 scrimmage yards for Ray Davis. You know, I think he's got like 26 scrimmage yards on the season through 3 games. He didn't touch the ball last week against the Dolphins. Bills got to get Ray Davis going. And obviously I'm not concerned about James Cook. I think, you know, he's phenomenal starting running back, but right now James Cook's on pace for 351 touches. That's too many. That's probably 50 to 75 too many. And part of that coming down is confidence in Ray Davis to be able to carry the football and catch the football. And I know he's lost some weight, and that's something that's concerning as of now because he hasn't looked too good. But I feel like you got to get him going because you need to get him going, but also you need some relief for James Cook when it comes to the overall volume of touches this season. So I think Ray Davis will get some opportunities and put me down for 25 scrimmage yards or more. So my predictions this week, James Cook, more than 74.5 rushing yards. Dalton Kincaid, over 35.5 receiving yards. 2 or more takeaways for the Bills defense. 25 scrimmage yards or more for Ray Davis. And then I already told you, I think the Bills win this game on Sunday, improve to 4-0. And then what is the next game? It's the Patriots, Sunday Night Football, rivalry uniform game. That'll be fun. Want to remind you about thejoemarino.com. I launched a website, and I have so many things that are going on. I have other podcasts. I have a Substack. I have a subtext available to you, a merchandise shop where I've got shirts. There's a Discord channel. We have almost 2,000 Bills fans in there. If you want to learn more about those things, go to thejoemarino.com and be part of the community that we're building around this podcast. Would encourage you to really check out the Substack. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm writing articles and producing video content there that I'm emailing to people 3-4 times a week, giving you all 22 breakdowns, giving you metric analysis on Josh Allen, scouting primers, all kinds of different things. I'd love for you to be a part of it, and it'll get you into the Discord channel. Go to thejoemarino.com and check it all out. There's a link in today's show notes if you don't want to type that in to your browser. And with that, folks, the hay is in the barn. We've done all we can. We're ready for this game. Only thing that's left to do is for the Buffalo Bills to go out there and win it and improve to 4-0, and then we can get ready for this Patriots game on Sunday night. That's going to do it for us here today. Don't forget Bill Squad right after the game. I'll be going live right here on the Locked On Bills YouTube channel. So come be part of that live discussion right after Bills and Saints wraps up. All right, that's it. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.